So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes so that you're left with the rest of your day to cover other parts of your UPSC syllabus. Now, just spending 30 minutes and just watching this lecture would be job half done, because just after watching this lecture, you need to revise it as well. Why, you ask? Well, revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes are shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Okay? Now, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So here's the list. These are the 5 topics that we shall cover today. Number 1 in this list is line of control. As you know, since the Pahalgam terror attack, Pakistan has been regularly violating the ceasefire line or line of control. It has been shelling, bombing, using artillery shells across the line of control, and India is replying. So line of control in the Kashmir area has become quite hot. Okay, so what is this line of control? How is it different from international border? You need to know these things, okay? So we will cover this. Then recently, US President Donald Trump has said that the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan is now under Chinese control, and that is a big security threat for, well, USA, because Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan was once under the control of America. So what is this Bagram Air Base? We'll talk about this and its significance also. Then, recently, Prime Minister Modi in Kerala inaugurated Vizhinjam Transshipment Port. Okay, now this will be India's first transshipment port, and it would create a lot of revenue options for India. Plus, it would save a lot of money for India, because India so far did not have a transshipment port. Colombo in Sri Lanka was a transshipment port. Singapore is a transshipment port. Dubai is a transshipment port. But India did not have a transshipment port. Therefore, India did not have a big share of, well, transshipment industry. Okay, as far as the shipping trade route is concerned. With this, that is going to change. So we'll talk about this. Then recently, some good news when it comes to stock market of India. Okay, domestic institutional investors have overtaken foreign investors in the national stock exchange. Now, this is really good news, and it has a lot of significance. We'll talk about the advantages of this, well, overtake. Okay, so we'll talk about this issue. And in the end, we'll talk about the triple test given by Honorable Supreme Court for OBC quota in local body elections. As you know, panchayat elections and urban local bodies, municipalities, municipal corporation elections do take place, and in that, seats are reserved for SCs, STs, and OBCs. Now, how many seats shall be reserved for OBCs depends on the population of OBCs in that area. Okay, if OBCs are just 10%, then 10% seats are reserved. Now, for that, Supreme Court gave a triple test to determine the amount of seats to be reserved for OBCs in local body elections. So what is this triple test? We'll talk about this. Okay, so these are the 5 topics that we shall zero in our attention on. Let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, which is line of control. Okay, now Pakistani troops violated the ceasefire along several sectors at the line of control and international border for the 8th consecutive night since Pahalgam terror attack. Okay, now the Indian Army has responded to each of these violations in a calibrated and proportionate manner. Okay, now this is in the news. Okay, and this might go on for a few days more also. But what is important for us to understand is, what is this line of control? Okay, what is the history of this line of control? How did it come into being? And what is line of control and how different it is from international border? Clear? So to understand all of that, well, we need to zoom in onto this map. Okay, so let's discuss this map. Now, listen to me carefully. Well, there is a difference between line of control and international border. Well, line of control is just a military border. It is not an internationally recognized border. It is just a border for the militaries. Okay, international border is an internationally recognized border. And the difference is that the thing is that this region, Gilgit-Baltistan region, which is currently administered by Pakistan, is claimed by India. India claims this territory to be India's. Pakistan claims the entire Jammu and Kashmir to be its own territory. Okay, that is why both sides do not recognize this line of control as international border, because they say that these two territories or this territory is disputed. And until and unless a solution comes out with respect to who gets which territory. Okay, this will never be international border. This is line of control. Now, line of control means that Indian military will control this side and Pakistani military will control this side. Okay, it is just a military understanding that our forces will stop at this line. Clear? Now, one more thing you need to understand about line of control. Okay, the thing is that line of control is administered or not administered, manned or protected by armies of the two sides. Okay, on the Indian side, it's Indian army. On the Pakistani side, it's the Pakistani army. But when it comes to international border, well, then border security is the responsibility of border security forces of the two countries. Okay, so when it comes to the international border over from Punjab and other areas, Rajasthan, Gujarat, well, on the Indian side, we have border security force, and on the Pakistani side, we have Pakistani Rangers, which is the border security force of their country. Clear? So this difference you need to know. International border is manned by border security forces. Line of control, since it is not a internationally recognized border, is manned by armies, since it's a military border. It's just an understanding. Clear? Now the thing is that you need to understand one more thing. Where does line of control begin and where does it end? Clear? Now, to understand this, you need to know about Kashmir. Okay. Now, this is the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And as you can see from here, this area or this line is the Pir Panjal ranges, Pir Panjal mountain range. Now, Pir Panjal mountain range divides the state into the Jammu plains and the Kashmir valley. Okay, so these Pir Panjal mountains divide the region into Jammu region and Kashmir valley. Clear? Now, from the Indian side, line of control basically starts somewhere here from Sangam village in Kashmir. Okay, till this point, NJ 142, which is also the area of Siachen Glacier, which India has occupied. Okay, India controls that. So from this point, which is the Sangam region, okay, and this point, which is Siachen Glacier, this is the line of control as far as India is concerned. Okay, now when we talk about the border between Jammu and Pakistan, this line, okay, India does not consider this line to be line of control because India says that this is the settled border because the area across this, the Pakistani area across this, is Pakistani Punjab area, and India does not claim Pakistani Punjab area. So for India, this line is international borders. Okay, but Pakistan does not consider this to be international border. Pakistan, well, claims Jammu region also. Clear? But for India, line of control is this thing. Okay. Now, India considers this to be international border, but the reason why India does not deploy only BSF at this international border in Jammu region is because, well, Pakistan infiltrates, sends terrorists through this region. That is why armies have occupied these heights as well. Clear? So you need to understand from this perspective from India's side. Okay, India considers this to be line of control. This line, this is considered international border, the border between Jammu and Pakistani Punjab. Clear? Makes sense? Though this border between Jammu and Pakistani Punjab is also quite hot. Ceasefire violations do take place over here, and Pakistan tries to infiltrate its terrorists from this region as well. Make sense? So this is the scenario as far as line of control is concerned. Now, one more thing. You need to be aware of the history of this region also. How did line of control came into being? So the thing is, in 1947, India and Pakistan were partitioned, and the status of Jammu and Kashmir, which was a princely state, was debated. Pakistan claimed the entire province of Jammu and Kashmir, state of Jammu and Kashmir. India said that it controls the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir. Clear? Now, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir signed instrument of accession with India. Therefore, Jammu and Kashmir went with India. But Pakistan was not happy with it. Therefore, Pakistan sent invaders into this territory of Jammu and Kashmir in 1948. This is the first war between India and Pakistan, where Pakistan sent its rangers, and, well, India was caught off guard. But Pakistani raiders, basically, the tribal raiders, were able to capture only this Gilgit-Baltistan region, and they were stopped by the Indian army at this line of control. and they were stopped in this Jammu region also. Okay, when this war got over, both countries signed a ceasefire. Ceasefire means that there is no peace agreement, but we will end our hostilities here. Both our armies would stop over here. Now, this was the ceasefire line. Okay, both countries had an understanding that no one would go beyond or no one would change this ceasefire line. Then what happened? 1965 war happened between India and Pakistan. Pakistan tried to capture Kashmir again, became unsuccessful. Then in 1971 war, Pakistan lost badly. This was also the Bangladesh Liberation War. In this war also Pakistan tried to capture Kashmir, but they were thwarted. Okay. Now, after the Bangladesh Liberation War, after the 1970 war, with the resounding defeat of Pakistan army, both countries signed a treaty known as the Shimla Agreement. In the Shimla Agreement, both countries renamed this ceasefire line as LOC, Line of Control. So it is after the Shimla Agreement of 1972 that the ceasefire line was named LOC, and by naming it LOC, it meant that both sides, though do not recognize this line as international border, because both sides claim each other's territory, but they would respect this line of control. No one would try to cross this line of control. No one would try to change this line of control. This is the de facto border as far as the armies of the two countries are concerned. Okay, till a solution to the Kashmir issue is resolved. Okay, so this is a military border that was formally adopted in Shimla Agreement. Clear? Now the thing is that Pakistan has never honored Shimla Agreement or line of control. It has used this line of control for shelling. It has cross-border shelling has happened, cross-border bomb has happened. Pakistan has tried to infiltrate terrorists through this line of control. And the reason why Pakistan uses terrorists is because Pakistan does not formally want to accept that it is breaching line of control or breaching Shimla Agreement. Pakistan says that these are just terrorists who are coming to your country. It is not our fault. But Pakistan has been regularly infiltrating line of control, dishonoring line of control. And this time is no different. Okay. Now, whenever line of control becomes hot, well, there is no standard procedure to resolve the issue. Whenever there is cross-border bombardment across line of control, there is no standard operating procedure to resolve the issue. The issues is resolved either through flag meetings of the local army commanders in the area. Okay, so flag meetings happen of the local army commander in this area, or DGMOs, Director General of Military Operations. In India, he sits in Delhi. In Pakistan, he sits in Rawalpindi. They talk on phone, also known as hotline, to resolve the issue. These are the only two ways through which this line of control becoming hot gets resolved. Okay, that is the thing. That's all you need to know as far as line of control is concerned. But it is very important for you to understand that this line of control is not international border, and India's border between Jammu and Pakistan, Punjab, as far as India is concerned, is recognized as international border. Clear? Make sense? Okay. Now let's shift our focus to second news item, which is Bagram Air Base. So US President Donald Trump on Thursday claimed that China now occupies the Bagram airfield, which American forces had vacated after pulling out of Afghanistan in 2021. Now, Bagram Air Base or airfield is the largest air base in Afghanistan, and it is some 60 kilometers to the north of Kabul, in the strategic state or province of Parwan. Okay. Now, why this Parwan province is strategic and why this Bagram airfield is strategic? They say that, well, this Parwan province has so many highways, so many tunnels, okay, which provide connectivity to other parts of Afghanistan. So if you control Parwan, you can go to any part of Afghanistan, north of Afghanistan, east, south, anywhere. That is why Parwan is significant, and an air base in this region in Bagram is strategic, okay, is significant. Clear? Now, as you can see on this map also, this is the region where Parwan province is there, where Bagram is there. It is 60 kilometers to Kabul, okay? And this is the Google map of Bagram Air Base. Now, if we go into the history of Bagram Air Base, remember, it was not built by Americans. It was built by Soviet Union in 1950s. Back in 1950s, US and USSR were involved in Cold War. Okay, and both countries were trying to be friendly with Afghanistan and trying to gain influence in Afghanistan. Okay, therefore, USSR somehow beat USA and built a strategic air base in Afghanistan. Okay, so USSR, for its own benefit, talked to the Afghan government and built an air base in Bagram. Clear? Then what happened? Soviet Union started controlling Afghanistan also. The ruling leadership of Afghanistan became very close to Soviet Union, and in fact, Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979 so that the ruling leadership of Afghanistan, which was friendly to Soviet Union, stays in power because there were rebels fighting against it. Now the thing is, Soviet Union, USSR was communist, and communists are atheists. They do not believe in religion, right? So America used this opportunity to stoke religious feelings, religious Islamic feelings among the population to rebel against USSR. They say that they will make you non-Muslims, they will snatch Islam away from you. Okay, so USA started to stoke these feelings so that the population of Afghanistan rebels against this Soviet occupation. Soviet Union came to Afghanistan in 1979. So the rebels, trained by America and supported by Pakistan, because Pakistan was America's ally, they started a war against Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and this war went on till 89. Okay, when Soviet Union had to withdraw from Afghanistan, and all these mujahideens who were trained by America and Pakistan, well, they took control over Afghanistan. But after some time, in the 1990s, well, these mujahideens fought amongst themselves. Okay, but till the time they were fighting against Soviet Union, in this 10-year period, Soviet Union used this Bagram Air Base, its airborne division used this Bagram Air Base to fight against mujahideens. But after 1990s, these mujahideens fought amongst themselves. There were two major groups, the Taliban and the Northern Alliance. Northern Alliance. Okay, there were some ethnic tensions also. Okay, as you can see, this part of Afghanistan is occupied by Pashtuns, ethnic Pashtuns, and the northern region is occupied by ethnic Tajiks, Uzbeks. Okay, because Afghanistan shares border with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. So these people consider themselves to be ethnically different from Pashtuns. So it was an ethnic rivalry also. So Northern Alliance, led by Ahmad Shah Massoud, you don't have to remember the name, fought against Taliban. But because Taliban was supported by Pakistan, Taliban eventually by the end of 1990s took control of this. In this civil war between Taliban and Northern Alliance, well, the thing was Bagram Air Base was destroyed. Then Taliban gained control of Afghanistan. Then 2001 9/11 attacks happened. Osama bin Laden was responsible for them. Osama bin Laden took refuge with Taliban. Now, America told Taliban that hand over Osama bin Laden or we will attack you. Taliban refused. So, America invaded Afghanistan in 2001. And since then, from 2001 to 2021, Bagram Air Base was redeveloped, expanded, and it was under American control. Clear? Makes sense? But in 2021, America had to withdraw and Taliban again came to power. Now Donald Trump says that this Bagram Air Base was occupied by us. It was our. We expanded it. We built the infrastructure over it. But now China occupies this strategic territory. Now Taliban denies that. But USA says that China occupies this secret strategic Bagram Air Base. Now, this is true that China has been very friendly with Taliban. And there is a good strategic reason for that. Okay. The thing is that as you can see, this is China and this is a very important province of China called Xinjiang. Now, majority of the population of Xinjiang is Muslims. And these Muslims are not happy with Chinese rule. They are saying that they are forcing us to give up our religion. These Muslims are not happy. Muslims in Xinjiang are not happy with Chinese rule. Therefore, some of these Muslim rebels in Xinjiang have created their own organization, rebel organization called East Turkestan Islamic Movement. Okay. Now, China considers this to be a terrorist organization and says that this organization is radicalizing the Muslims in our area. That is why it is becoming difficult for us to control this. Now, Xinjiang shares its border with Afghanistan also. And China is concerned that radical elements in Afghanistan might support Muslims of Xinjiang. Therefore, China is becoming friendly with Afghanistan so that, not Afghanistan, Taliban, so that Taliban controls these radical elements and not allow them to infiltrate Xinjiang, and China is able to control Xinjiang. That is why China became very friendly with Taliban and was doing some investments in Taliban, and now some people say they have occupied the Bagram Air Base as well. That is the entire issue. Okay, that is the entire geopolitical issue. Clear? All right. Now let's move on to third news item, which is Vizhinjam Transshipment Port. So the Prime Minister inaugurated the Vizhinjam Port, an 8,900 crore international deep-water multipurpose seaport in Kerala. The port is being developed by Adani Ports, a private company, and SEZ Limited on design, build, finance, operate, transfer model. Okay. Now, what is this DBFOT model? Okay. The thing is, DBFOT model is a public-private partnership model in which the government and private player cooperates to build an infrastructure project. Okay. Now, in this DBFOT PPP model, what happens is the private party is responsible for designing the seaport. The private party is responsible for building the port. The private party is responsible to finance the port also, to bring the money to build this port. And the private party is allowed to operate the port to earn some revenue so as to cover its cost. And then eventually it will transfer it to the government. This is DBFOT model. Now, Adani Ports was given this port to construct under DBFOT model. Now, the reason why this port is significant and why Prime Minister had to come to Kerala to inaugurate this port was that it is India's first international deep water port. It is India's first transshipment port. Now, to understand its significance, you need to know what transshipment port is. Okay. Now, look at this map. Okay. Now, from Rotterdam till Hong Kong, this is known as the east-west trade route. Okay. It connects Asia with Europe. In between, there is Africa also. This is the sea route. Okay. Sea route that connects Europe with Asia. Now, if there are goods that need to be exported from Europe to India, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, anywhere, what happens is a big ship comes, okay, and it stops at Colombo seaport. Then the goods on that ship are offloaded, and it is put on smaller ships. Okay, some smaller ships to go to India if there are goods that are to be exported to India. Okay, some smaller ships go to Indonesia, some go to, well, let's suppose Pakistan also. Okay, so a big ship comes and docks at Colombo port. Then goods are offloaded and they are loaded on those ships which will go to different countries. Clear? Now this area, this port of Colombo is known as a transshipment port because this is a transit hub. And the reason why Colombo has a transshipment port is because Colombo has a deep water port. It is a deep water port. It can host bigger ships. Okay. Now, India does not have a transshipment port because India's ports are not that deep water. Therefore, we cannot host bigger ships. That's why all the exports coming to India, okay, are all the goods coming to India are first docked at Colombo and then transported to India. Now that leads to significant revenue losses to India. Okay, so India needs its own transshipment port. By the way, it's not just Colombo that is a transshipment port. Singapore over here is also a transshipment port. Okay, Dubai over here is also a transshipment port. But India does not have a transshipment port. Not anymore. Because after Vizhinjam, we will have our transshipment port and we won't waste a lot of revenue and give it to Colombo or Singapore or Dubai for transshipment facilities. Clear? This is the significance of this port. Okay, as you can see, this is Vizhinjam on Kerala on this area. It is India's first deep water transshipment hub located just 10 nautical miles from a prominent east-west international shipping route. I told you this is the east-west international shipping route. This Vizhinjam is just 10 nautical miles away from it. So big ships can now come to Vizhinjam and then use it as transshipment hub. What is transshipment port? These are strategically located ports that serve as intermediary points in the global shipping network for transferring cargo. India's Vizhinjam is all-weather 24/7 fully automated operations. All right, that's all. Clear? Now let's move on to fourth news item, which is domestic institutional investors overtake FPIs on national stock exchange. So the share of domestic institutional investors on NSE universe of listed companies reached an all-time high of 17.62%, and it has surpassed foreign investors because foreign investors had a share of 17.22%. Okay. Now look, in India's stock markets, okay, many investors invest. There are foreign investors, which are known as foreign portfolio investors. There are investors like you and me, who are called retail investors, people like you and me who invest in share market. Then there are some big organizations like mutual funds, insurance funds, pension funds, okay, banks, which also invest a big chunk of their money in stock markets to earn profit. Okay, these are known as institutional investors, and because these institutional investors belong to India, they are called domestic institutional investors. Now, up till now in Indian stock markets, majority, not majority, but a dominant chunk was with foreign portfolio investors. Okay, foreign portfolio investors had a lion's share in India's stock markets. Therefore, Indian stock markets were dependent on money coming in from these foreign portfolio investors. Therefore, Indian stock markets were vulnerable to investments by these FPIs. If these FPIs are happy, they will invest in India. This would lead to rise in Indian stock market. But if there is a problem, okay, if they are not confident in India, or maybe there is geopolitical tensions in the world, foreign portfolio investors would extract their money out of stock market. That would lead to sell off, and they would withdraw from India. Indian stock markets would crash because Indian stock markets dependency on FPIs was so high that we were vulnerable to shocks from them. If they are investing, we are rising. If they are going, then we are crashing. Clear? But in recent times, there is a good trend that is being witnessed. Okay, whenever FPIs withdraw from India, well, their place is taken by Indian investors, domestic investors. These domestic investors buy whatever FPIs are selling, and so our stock markets do not crash to that extent because domestic institutional investors have taken up or absorbed the shock given by foreign portfolio investment withdrawal. Now, this is good news because this will make India immune to external shocks. Clear? So, this is good news, and these are its advantages. Immunity from external shocks. The steady rise in DII shareholding over the last 5 years acts as a counterweight to FPI. This would make our stock markets more Atmanirbhar, less vulnerable to foreign investors. Plus, it would provide the much needed stability to Indian stock market because if FPIs are going, stock markets won't crash because their share will be taken by DIIs. So this is good news basically. Okay. And in the end, we'll talk about this triple test for OBC quota. Jharkhand has finished collecting data on population of OBCs from all districts of the state in order to determine quotas for OBCs in urban local bodies. Okay. Now in India, local body elections take place, right? Local bodies are Panchayati Raj institutions for rural areas and urban local bodies, municipality, municipal corporations for urban areas. Now in these bodies, seats are reserved for women, seats are reserved for SCs, seats are reserved for STs, and seats are also reserved for OBCs. But our constitution says that the seats for OBCs shall be reserved, and others also shall be reserved on the basis of their share in population. Now, to determine the quota given to OBCs, we first have to do a survey to determine the population share OBCs have, right? For that, you need to do a proper survey. Now, Supreme Court in Vikas Kishan Rao Gavli versus State of Maharashtra gave a judgment, and it gave a basically 3-phase test to determine OBC quota. Okay, so it is known as the triple test. This triple test has to be conducted by every state to determine OBC quota in local body elections. Now, what is this triple state quota? In the first phase will be the survey, setting up of a dedicated commission to conduct a rigorous survey into the nature and implication of backwardness in local bodies. Then phase 2, specifying the proportion of reservation required in local bodies. Phase 3, you have to ensure that the total reservation, SC, ST, women, OBCs, do not cross 50% mark. All these 3 phases have to be done. Then only reservation can be given to OBCs in the local body elections. This is the triple test given by Supreme Court in the judgment as discussed by us previously. Okay, Vikas Kishan Rao Gavli versus State of Maharashtra. Clear? That would be all as far as this topic is concerned, and that would be all as far as today's current affairs are also concerned. With that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you revise this lecture as well. So please do not forget to do that. And on that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.